Hello, everybody. Good evening. So sustainability is not about sustaining profits. It's more about growing corporate profitability in a way that does not harm the environment and where companies are also mindful of various corporate governance standards. But we live in a world uh, which is just full of publicity stunts and corporate greenwashing. Many of you might have heard about Mr. Hemendra Kothari. So as a journalist, Mr. Hemendra Kothari is a pioneer in investment banking in India, and he founded DSP fund, which has some $15 billion worth of assets under management. That is not the topic of discussion today, but as an investment banker, this was just the background that I was giving you. As an investment banker, he raised thousands of crores of rupees for various corporate houses. So one day when I met him at a conference, I asked him, I discovered that he was also the trustee of Wildlife Conservation Trust that takes care of India's big forests. So once I asked him at a conference how he plays the dual role of raising money for corporates and also real estate developers who have the least of regard for environment and well-being of population. And on the other hand, he's the biggest advocate for preserving the environment. Today, nearly after 10 years, I again have an opportunity to ask some of the leading corporates and one of India's largest developers their idea of profits and environment sustainability. So I will start with Mr. Abdullah of Lodha Developers. We are all familiar with the newspaper headlines of poor air quality in Mumbai and all the big cities, which is the chief cause of asthma. Mumbai was judged as the second most polluted city amongst 109 places tracked by IQ Air, a Swiss technology company measuring air quality on a real-time basis. Dear sir, with all due respect, Lodha is one of India's largest real estate developers. But can we praise Lodha for environment sustainability too?
Yes. Not only we are the largest real estate developer, I think we are also at the forefront of sustainable action. I don't know whether you are aware or not, we have partnered with Rocky Mountain Institute to develop something called Lodha Net Zero Urban Accelerator, which is actively working on the space of decarbonization. So our sustainability strategy actually rests on two pillars. One is decarbonization and another one is resilience. And it all comes from bringing climate risks as a central issue. Independent of the action that we are doing, I think it's also important to understand why we are doing it and why anybody should do it. India is a economic bright spot. 15% of global growth is coming from India. It will continue to happen in the next few decades. The affordability will significantly increase. The urbanization will increase. More than 10 crore households will become home ownership capable. This will drive urbanization at an unprecedented scale, once in a lifetime opportunity for a country. It always happens. It happened in US, it happened in China, it will happen here. Now this growth is what we call as what will shift us from being a low-income country to a middle-income developed country, and that's what we call as Amritkal. Now this growth, we have to ensure is not, we do not have to do things that delimit this growth. Do you want to spend this money on, now you are talking about air quality and all the impacts it has on lives. So do we want to spend these growth dollars on disaster recovery or undue healthcare expenses? You have $500 million is our GDP, our budget expenditure. 0.1, so $500 billion is our budget expense, of which $100 billion goes for energy, 20%. So energy security is critical for our growth. Now, instead of spending the money on disaster recovery, we have to spend this money on growth. Similarly, being the second largest employer after agriculture, real estate and construction, this is the area where the capacity building is going to happen, and this is the area where the income growth will happen. So, and this is what will create the future market. So that's why, as a developer, it is very important for us that we want this pie to increase. We want to take share in this pie. We want the nation to grow. We want the climate risks not to impact our country as much. And that is the reason that, our sustainability strategy is that. I'll talk more about what we do at Lodha Net Zero Urban Accelerator as we go on, but sustainability is a very important part for us.
Okay. One more question I'm sure a lot of people here will have on top of their mind is, developers, big developers are choking the cities. Do you have that concern on your mind when you build those huge towers and, which actually, so the roads are pretty small, cities are choked completely.
So you have, it's not true, by the way. So we have been working on integrated urban developments as well. So you would have seen our development at Palava. You might have heard about Upper Thane, Amara. These are integrated developments where the residences, offices are all brought at one place, where walk to work, walk to school is feasible, where unnecessary travel can be avoided. Now, obviously, the commercial ecosystem at Palava is yet to grow, but if you look at the vision and if you look at the overall master plan, it has been done in a manner that ultimately it will lead to people not exposed to this choking situation, number one. Number two, if you look at our developments, and I'm quite proud to say that at the energy intensity level, a person living at Palava is consuming less than 30 kilowatt hours per square meter annually. It is very low. If you compare your own bills, you will find out that it is significantly low. It's only because the development has been done in a manner with passive design, with high equipment efficiency, and so forth. In India, you would have heard that there are approximately 9,000 odd EV car charging points. Within MMR region, at Lodha, across our projects, we have more than 110 public car charging points. So it's the outsized impact. And if you look at not only us, I mean the leading real estate developers in the country, you would find that the action being taken is really trend setting. It is really, I think it will also percolate down to the smaller players. And if you can, our sites are just around the corner. You can go and see how we have been taking care of the air quality, how the barricadings have been done, how the water sprinkling is being done, the tires of vehicles coming in and out is being done, the vehicle time scheduling is being done, the air quality monitoring has been done. It's all in place. Now it's just a matter that we set such examples which others can follow, and that's where we are trying our best.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Abhishek Ranjan of Brillio. It's a global consulting firm, so we will know from him. What is your experience with the corporates? Do they often complain to you about the growing cost of sustainability and corporate governance, and you face that pushback from the corporates? So we will know whether what Lodha is saying is.
Yeah, I think just yesterday my CEO shared me an article from Wall Street Journal. Very rare he shares on ESG topics, and so there was a decline of $14 billion investment in ESG funds. That's not a very welcome sign, right? I mean, investors are fading away from investing in ESG funds, the tune of $14 billion in just 1 year. It's a worrisome sign, because the talk also has to, sustainability has to be profitable. It cannot be just a talk or a tom talk. Now, you raise a very important point that ultimately who is paying for the ESG? Irrespective of whichever companies we represent, where is the money is coming from? Do we have a real answer? If I ask the audience, who is actually paying the ESG cost ultimately? Whom do you think? the end customers, right? Is it a right thing? I don't think we'll agree to that, right?
Mr. Lodha doesn't, Mr. Abdullah doesn't agree to it.
You don't agree to it? That customers end
I
up...
think it is a public paying for it, right, sir?
See, the point is,
As far as I know, Lodha charges every square inch of
yeah,
space.
that's something else.
Public paying.
That's something else. So, see, Lodha is the largest real estate developer, maximum in terms of sales, and people are still flocking. So, I think that's not the point is that sustainability is not a factory, basically. So, sometimes when you look at investment is that, you know, you have to put capex today and tomorrow you will get the benefits. Sustainability is not a factory. Sustainability is an approach. Now, once you take that approach, you can break it up into many parts. When I decide to work on efficiency, when I decide to incorporate sustainable features in my project, I would say that huge amount of work can be done without any extra cost and the product becomes more sustainable. Greener concrete mixes, not more expensive. Having more efficient equipment which is already available on a life cycle basis, not more expensive. And so many other things as well. All these chargers I was talking about, we have not paid anything. The customers are actually getting the benefit and so forth. I'm sure Anjalli will also tell about, you know, the examples from the ride that Zomato takes on an electric vehicle. So it will not be more expensive, I believe. So that's one part. Second, when you start monitoring, measuring, taking that approach, your operational efficiencies improve. We start saving money in our operations. We start, accruing better sales. We start getting access to better funds. So a lot of operational efficiencies come. Now, obviously, for the next gen or the next scale of interventions, like, for example, you start very low concrete, low carbon concrete, carbon capture, 3D printing large buildings. Obviously, yes, this will be more expensive, but at this moment, we are only testing it. We are just learning from it. We are doing these pilots, giving feedback from the field that, what needs to change, what are the best, cost drivers that will tunnel through the cost barriers, etc. So that futuristic aspects, they are being tested, not too expensive. The testing is not too expensive. And the supply chain can then be remodeled around that. A lot of sustainability action and approach is already available to just transform the whole ecosystem. And that's what we are trying to do. A lot of other people are also trying to do. Obviously, everything the customer ultimately pays. But the customer is not being charged unduly or any premium for doing anything. At Lodha also, all the sustainability action that we are doing, I don't think that the apartments are getting more expensive. Similarly, if a person is, is placing an order on Zomato, it is not getting more expensive because the ride is greener.
I hope that this is the true thing which every company should do. But the reality check, just before coming to this conference, I'm having a conversation with my travel team, the transport guys who manages it, and we were discussing how do we go 100% EV for our employee transportation. We have around 5,000 employees in India. You know what the cost of a gasoline car, a taxi or cab, what we hire, versus a EV car is at least 20-30% premium. So am I ready to absorb that cost? Right? Why I'm saying that most of the companies now doing something called internal carbon pricing. I don't know whether this sounds very news to you, but that's a reality. And God forbidden, we may have a carbon tax very soon. There's a lot of murmur in all circuits, and whether you call it tax or you call it another form of CSR law coming for the environment, but there is a strong rumor or a strong conversation around that. And many companies are actually gearing up for that by making an internal carbon pricing so that we are not, how do you do the mechanics internally? It's very easy for me to say that I will not charge my end consumer. But will my CFO allows tomorrow that, okay, you have to pay 1%, let's assume will be an environment tax. Who is going to pay that? And that will obviously affect our bottom line. So to get away with that, those kind of challenges, we are working on something called internal carbon pricing. The ideal scenario, what my colleague from Lodha said, is the ideal scenario that none of these costs should pass back to the customer. And if you're not doing innovations, if you're not, making your processes and not making efficient operations, then you are not doing ESG. But the term you use probably the greenwashing. I rest the case here.
Corporate greenwashing.
So I rest the case here.
Okay. So we'll go to Mr. Pawan Verma, who's from PNG. Now, PNG is the world's FMCG behemoth. I would like to know from Mr. Pawan about the rigorous practices that PNG follows, especially in India, with regard to environment sustainability. And sir, you earn a huge profit here, since India is a large market. So what is PNG's contribution to CSR in India?
Yeah. So just to start with, I was hearing the conversation around. I think one thing which is very loud and clear, focus on sustainability is not nice to have. It's must to have now. And we being the consumer-centric company, while our endeavor to improve their lives, make their lives better, has not changed, but what we are also realizing is the standard of being better is changing. So now more for consumers, but not more for environment is no longer a good. So what we are also trying to do is that we are trying to make sure that we are building sustainability as part of our integral business strategy. While we are getting a lot of impetus with a lot of consumer landscape which is evolving around, a lot of infrastructure, policy makers, new startup ecosystem which are coming up in India are making this journey in a way easier. So just to take few example, I'll go example by example. We truly believe that if we are intentional enough to drive value, we can add a lot of value to the whole value chain. In 2018, we announced that by 2030, all of our plants will use 35% lesser water per case that we produce versus 2010. And we were very intentional going through plant by plant, measuring the process. And today, as we stand, 4 to 5 years down the line, in India, 5 out of our 8 plants have already surpassed that goal, number one. Number two, on energy. We are also very intentional to bring more and more renewable resources back to PNG. And as we speak, we have now 2 in-house solar plants operating, and third is on the way. Yeah? And as I think you were talking about, sustainability is not where you invest today and you reap the benefit and the profit tomorrow. It's a journey. It will take years, but it's a case where we all can ensure that while doing good, we are also making profit out of it. The third example I'll tell you, the whole startup ecosystem, how you become more intentional and start leveraging that. So take one example, we are working with an analytics company today, and what we have realized that simply by measuring our milk routes, looking into our trucks and vehicles, how much they travel, we have optimized significantly the amount of tonnage and amount of kilometers it travels, and it resulted into huge savings. So I think the way the whole consumer landscape is evolving and supported by the ecosystem and the policy makers is going to play a huge role in India.
Can you throw some light on plastic waste management? Because FMCG companies are the biggest users of plastic and pollutants, I can say. Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah. So, now it is regulated, this extended producer's responsibility, everybody needs to pick up 100% of the plastic by end of this fiscal year. This is the third year we all need to pick up. But we also realize that, our responsibility goes beyond that only the guidelines. In the last 2 years, we are actually collecting much more plastic than what we are inputting into the market. So that's a great example of why we are very concerned about the plastic that we introduce. But we are also creating enough infrastructure to make sure that we collect it back, we recycle it, and we upcycle it.
Okay. I would like to go to Ms. Anjalli Ravi Kumar, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer of Zomato. To Ms. Anjalli, I would have loved to ask if Zomato was concerned about the massive crash in the share price immediately after the IPO and destruction of shareholder wealth, but that's not the topic today. So we can be more benign to her. Ma'am, please tell us more about Zomato's CSR practices. And I was told Zomato has something called as climate conscious delivery. What is that?
Thanks for the question. Let me start with, I think the topic itself, before I did have a comment on the topic of the panel, which was sustainability and profitability. I think the way it's framed, it seems like they're opposing forces. I think in Zomato's case, actually, we have sustainability is one of the ingredients of how we've become profitable very recently. It's perhaps helped that we had some leeway from our investors to make certain decisions early on. One of those decisions was climate conscious deliveries, what you referred to. We took a decision well before our IPO to try to build out the ecosystem for electric vehicle-based deliveries. And as you know, that's quite complicated because EV two-wheelers are still more expensive than their ICE counterparts. And our delivery partners don't have the same access to finance that most of us enjoy. So what we did is we partnered with a variety of EV ecosystem players. Today there are over 70 partners in our portfolio, and effectively built out that entire ecosystem so that delivery partners could get access to EVs. So today, 1 out of 5 deliveries in Delhi and in Bangalore is EV based, and that's a significant contributor to lowering our emissions because 95% of our emissions sit in deliveries. And on the basis of our confidence in our own program, we've also gone on to declare that we will be net zero by 2033. So that's sort of, in a nutshell, our climate conscious deliveries initiative.
Oh, interesting. So on a lighter note, somebody from the audience told me to ask you if the public shareholders of Zomato stranded since the IPO can be made beneficiaries of your CSR funds.
Well, I can tell you one stakeholder group that, again, we chose to support well in advance, and, again, sort of highlighting the fact that sustainability and profitability don't have to be sort of opposing in opposite sort of corners of the room. Some of you may have contributed to the Feeding India program, and it's not a CSR program, as is commonly sort of misunderstood. It is actually a way in which we use our platform to raise money to fight hunger and malnutrition. So in 2019, this was 2 years before our IPO and 4 years before we turned profitable, we decided to use the platform to raise funds for hunger and malnutrition. And today, Feeding India is one of India's largest non-profit initiatives and has served 14 crore meals to beneficiaries. So I do think, kudos to the team that thought about how best we can also contribute to society despite being very far away from being profitable.
Okay. So I did not get the answer on shareholders, but anyways. So when it comes to topics like CSR, ESG, and sustainability, my favorite word is corporate greenwashing, because pollution is growing and corporate governance standards of companies, many companies you can say, have not improved over the years. But before we open the floor for questions from the audience, couple of questions, I'll just like people to conclude, the panelists to conclude on that point of corporate greenwashing. So each of you can take this and quickly we can end with this concluding remarks. Who wants to go first?
Sure.
Corporate greenwashing is...
So I do think it's a real risk because,
One second, by corporate greenwashing, what I mean is these talks of CSR and sustainability are just publicity stunts to get that favorable opinion of public, So that's what I mean by corporate greenwashing.
I don't think that seeking favorable opinion is a bad thing. I think it's actually, a lot of business happens on the basis of trust. In fact, I would argue that business happens on the basis of trust. Trust, your consumers trust you, investors trust you, government trusts you to do what's right. So seeking out trust through actions that are socially impactful, in my book, is not a wrong thing. I think that, but in the process of those actions, one has to be extremely transparent about what one has achieved, and importantly, what one has not achieved. Like, for instance, we've just released a blog post about the fact that women's representation in our warehouses is very low. And, diversity is an important sustainability metric, and we've been quite honest about the fact that we've really had a hard time. We were at lower than 5%, but we've run certain experiments to try to figure this out, and we've shared those learnings. I think there's a measure of honesty and transparency that can help you overcome the risk of greenwashing. But setting those standards is what's key. The standards for transparency.
Yeah, okay, I think Mr. Ravi Ranjan, one second. Abhishek Ranjan, I think he agrees.
I think in the world of social media and the social activism is so high, it's very difficult for companies to do greenwashing and just get away with it, right? I think the fact that we all are coming and representing in the public forum like this and probably taking the tough questions from a media senior journalist is that we are willing to scrutinize, right? And the one good thing has happened with the advent of social media, that every single person in this room is a stakeholder of my company or any company for matter. I'm stakeholder to Zomato. The good part is that I invested in Zomato after the IPO.
After the IPO.
So I made some money so far. So that was a wise decision at some right time. But the point is here is that, see, every single person in the room is a stakeholder of my company. You're all individual stakeholders. I don't see you, but you see me, right? It's very easy for you to kind of just go on social and say, this guy was not doing anything right. And the next morning, I'll get a, memo from the top leadership, right? So I think the world is watching us. What we are speaking here, what my leadership is speaking or writing on blog or articles or media or getting award is just not going to help me to kind of do greenwashing. So I think the term is there, but I think it's not going to be stay
Fair
longer.
point. So I agree. Scrutiny is more. The companies have also prospered with PR activities and stuff.
And with my sincere apology, I have to leave because I have to catch a flight. Thank you so much.
Sure. No worries. Thank you, Abhishek ji.
Yeah, I'll just pick up, what Anjalli spoke. I think now we have reached to a stage where I think having a transparent conversations with our stakeholders, with our, partners become very important. I think the need of an hour is where we go and tell that this is a space which is evolving. And, we might not have all the answers today, but we need to be agile, we need to be nimble, we need to recognize that things will change. Like very simple example, in 2018, when we announced our Ambition 2030, so we had very specific goals around what we'll do in waste, water, climate, and so on. But we realized the market is evolving, the environment is evolving, the expectations are evolving. We went back, we announced another net zero goal. In 2021, we said by 2040, we'll be net zero. So after 2030, we said net zero by 2040. Then we realized water is another critical priority. And last year we announced, we identified there are 18 water stress basins globally. 5 out of those 18 are in India. And we are committed to restore much more water than what we consume in our factories in those water stress basins. So I think the bottom line is having the right transparency, accepting that this field is evolving will help all of us to go into the right direction.
Abdullah ji.
So while answering your first question, I had said that, we adopt sustainability to de-risk basically. Now, if someone does greenwashing, they invite that risk of, of scrutiny and ultimately it will all be caught. So that's not so, I believe. I think it all is on transparency and trust. There are enough and more data disclosures that are happening. These frameworks are also quite day by day becoming more robust. The benchmarking is also becoming more effective. So I think, in fact, you would see a lot of companies not reaching out to their stakeholders with all the good initiatives that they are doing. The feedback that we get from the system is, we are not aware what you are doing. So we have to on one side work on that. I don't think greenwashing is for big responsible corporates. I don't think it's an option. It's easy.
Abdullah ji, since you are here, is this pollution in cities due to rapid development work that is going on, construction work that is going on top of your mind when you plan your projects? And, how do you think that you can, bring down this kind of pollution that is there in the city.
simply,
It's
as I
causing
said,
people's life. 22,000 people have died due to asthma in this year itself in Mumbai city.
Okay. So, as I said earlier, we can only do that by being the example. The amount of construction that is being done by the major players versus all the, the significant amount of construction that takes place. You'll always have to see that ratio. Who is causing that? Now, if we can be more transparent about our practices, we can showcase that, doing those things is not expensive, it is not a problem, then the entire ecosystem will evolve. So I think the entire ecosystem will evolve. In India, a lot of organization has to still happen in various industries. I don't think it is fair to put the blame on the big players. I think big players are working in the right direction.
But big players also have that much bigger responsibility.
Yeah, so we have to then, showcase and prove that it is all, it doesn't impact the profits.
I agree. So we have time for a couple of questions. Yeah, sure. There's a gentleman there.
Thank you, Palakji. You talk about my heart of minds. For that purpose, I'm coming here actually. Like as talk about air pollution actually, we have developed one of the solution actually. So I want to know about profitability, whether we come up with the company like all corporates where profitability, because when we do the innovation, we also require platform. So all the employees are asset, your asset, company asset actually. So we implement this nanofiber to all the windows. So all the pollution cannot come inside, pure air actually. So if I approach the builder, so you validate through your Excel, your different programs, so it will also increase the price of your flats also, because 100% people are getting pure air also. Something you create the problem, but also you supporting the solution, which is the, people are paying. So, and same time, whether we use the Zomato employees or other employees, corporate employees, where we also reach out our innovation to them. So we can pass our something, so we get a platform. So how such kind of program can also become?
He's, I think, giving you an idea of unique selling proposition of giving people clean air. People who stay in your So, is that on your mind ever?
So while
while you sell sea view flats, this is another idea of selling good, pure air flats also.
So if you look at the products that we offer, the commercial buildings, the office spaces, which are run and maintained by us, there, all the air quality initiatives are already in place from pre-COVID times. And then obviously during COVID times, they became more stringent and more effective, I would say. On the residential side, again, passing on the premium. So the moment we do that, and then you'll say we are passing on the premium. So this is a product, this type of products are to be adopted by the residents. We can obviously help them, showcase it to them, maybe do some sort of a sample where those who want to adopt can obviously take it up and that advantages. So we are selling houses in plain houses.
Okay. That was a product pitch, by the way. But any other questions? Okay. So good then, we'll sum it up. Thank you everybody for being so patient.